and it will be the most authentic, culturally accurate experience that one would have. So if you wanted to come to Hawaii and experience Hawaii, experience it. I mean, really, really experience it. Right. This is the only place that you would want to stay.
Aloha. Welcome to Hawaii's Best Podcast. Learn the stories behind Hawaii's best experiences, influencers, and businesses. Discover everything that makes Hawaii the Aloha State. And now your host, Bryan Murphy.
Aloha and welcome to Hawaii's Best, where we explore Hawaii's best experiences, businesses, and influencers, and we get to hear the story from the people behind them. Well, I'm your host, Bryan Murphy, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining me today and for spending some of your time with us on Hawaii's Best. And the best way to stay up to date on future episodes is to smash that subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at hawaiis.best. And recently we put out a checklist. So if you are planning on taking a vacation to a tropical location such as Hawaii, there's certain things that you want to consider to bring with you, but you also want to travel light. So we compiled a list of things that you must consider to pack on your next trip to Hawaii, and we compile that in a free checklist. So all you got to do is go to livehawaiisbest.com/checklist, and there you'll find everything that you need to know about what to bring on your next trip to Hawaii. As a family of 5, we have gone from 2 check bags, 5 carry-ons, 5 personal bags, and we've taken that all the way to just 1 check bag and just a couple carry-ons. And it's important to pack the essentials, and it's important to know what the essentials are. So we compiled all that just for you in this free checklist. So go to livehawaiis.best/checklist and you'll be able to find it there. Today we are chatting with the Food and Beverage Director at the Westin Maui Resort and Spa at Kahanapali. Recently, my wife, Allie, and I, we had the privilege of hanging out at the Westin for a few days. And the hospitality that we were shown has been something that we have personally have never experienced before. The Westin is such an amazing place, and the amenities are amazing, and they're going through a renovation that we're going to be talking through a little bit during this interview. But what we left mostly with leaving the Westin is a sense of culture and a sense of aloha. And the Westin has done an amazing job at doing this balance, doing this dance, if you will, of providing a great experience of everything that you would envision a world-class resort to have as far as the amenities. But the Westin has taken amazing detail in providing aloha and providing the culture and history that is so rich, especially on Maui. Now, at the end of this episode, I'm going to be giving you some of my key takeaways. And from my conversation in this interview, it'll probably be pretty clear what those takeaways are. But when I was there, I had a chance to sit down with the Food and Beverage Director at the Westin Maui. And we talked on location about all the things that we can expect and look forward to in this renovation process. You can find the Westin Maui at the Westin Maui on Instagram and by simply searching the Westin Maui. Our guest today has years of experience as serving as an executive chef with 2 tenures in global hospitality environments. He has been involved in opening thousands of restaurants, and his eye for excellence and his eye for detail is top notch. But more than that, his heart and his care for his home, Maui, is something that comes across in everything that he does. His heart, his passion for what he does, and his heart and passion for his staff and his team are inspiring. So right now, guys, we are going to talk story with Jonathan Lee from the Westin Maui Resort and Spa. Jonathan, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Hawaii's Best. How are you doing? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Fantastic. No, it was good fun. We had breakfast this morning.
Yeah, that was amazing.
I'm the food and beverage director here at the Westin.
Okay.
I've been at the hotel about a year and a half. I actually grew up on this side of the island and moved back about 3 years ago. First year I came home. I actually lived in Hong Kong, and then I was in Oahu for the year after that. And now I'm actually home. And it's been a lot of fun. And we had a perfect morning. It was nice.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it was all right.
Now, have you always been in this kind of field of work?
I was in hotels. Since I grew up in Hawaii, hospitality is always kind of part of stuff. When I was a kid, real young, I wanted to be a ninja, and that never panned out.
Yeah, that worked out. You got the black shirt.
Yeah, I got the black shirt. I got the right last name. Nothing else kind of worked out for me. And then I worked in restaurants around town when I was a kid, and then my first kind of love was always been the ocean. So I worked on boats for a little bit. I worked on a sailboat. I was a commercial diver for a little while, and then I needed to make money.
Okay.
So that had to go away. Right. And so I ended up working at a hotel up north at the Ritz-Carlton, kind of progressed through that. I spent the last 25 years traveling around the planet, and I was a chef for a little bit, and I was a restaurant consultant and a hospitality consultant, and now I'm back heading up a project that we're doing here at the Westin that will be completed in June of 2020.
Awesome. We'll definitely get into the details of that and all those good things, but maybe a little bit more about you, food and beverage director. Is that a passion of yours? Maybe expand a little bit more.
I was a chef. I was an executive chef for several hotels. I worked for a catering company and did that until I was in my early 30s, and then decided that I wasn't going to be the best chef. I'm okay at it, but I wasn't ever going to be the best. And I had an opportunity to work for a company that allowed me to be a consultant and travel a little bit more. So outside of the water, I think traveling, I really like seeing cultures and different people and the way people think. Yeah. And growing up here, that was nice. Growing up in Hawaii, everybody comes here. So you have people from all walks of life and all over the planet. And I thought, I'd like to go see where they're from.
Right.
So I spent the last 10 or 12 years traveling pretty extensively. And it's always been a passion. Traveling for me is the same thing. I want to learn about the people. Yeah. I really want to learn about the food. I want to learn about, what things that they like. And you kind of, as you travel more and more, you find out that people want the same things no matter where they live. They want to be happy. They want a good family. They want to contribute something to the society. And everybody's generally proud of where they're from. So I'm very proud of being from Hawaii, very proud of being from Maui. I'm very proud of, growing up on the west side of this island. And everybody's very similar to that no matter where they're from. So it has always been a passion. I'm very passionate about people and learning, and food lends itself to learning every day, because it doesn't matter who you meet. Somebody can cook something much better than you or is eating something that you never have. So that part of it I love. It's a very
intimate part of the culture that you're
100%.
Yeah. You spent some time off the islands for a period and then you came back. Talk a little bit about what was life like on Hawaii prior to that, and then what was it like when you came back?
When I was a kid here, I remember it was, I talked about being a ninja because I would go to Oahu when I was younger and spend a couple weeks and go see grandparents and stuff like that. And the old International Marketplace in Honolulu was about a block and a half from where my family lived. And during the summer, you had to pass Kuhio, which is a street right in front of International Marketplace. Right. And it was at that point, and this is, late 70s, early 80s and mid 80s, it wasn't safe.
Okay.
So it was, and by not safe, it was, I used to think it was very neat. Yeah. There was a lot of stuff going on.
Eclectic.
Eclectic. There you go. So we had to be home before it got dark. We had to cross the street and stuff. And I just remember then it was, you could do, we'd be gone all day. We'd go boogie boarding or surfing or causing problems and trying not to get caught or whatever it was. And nobody worried about it. And even Maui, there was nothing, you never were worried about stuff. Everybody knows you. So if you do something wrong, you're not getting caught by just your parents. Your parents are finding stuff out without investigating. Everybody, every auntie, every uncle, every neighbor, everybody knows who you are. They know who your parents are. They know what time your parents get off of work. They probably work with your parents. So it was a great place to grow up because you had to be either clever or good. And nobody was ever clever. So you just kind of always had to be good. And everybody, it's a very tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. And coming back, it was neat to see that a lot of the same people I grew up with are still here. They've got kids now. They're married. They still have the same maturity level and everything else. There's a lot more responsibilities. From a food standpoint, I thought it was like Thunderdome here when I was a kid. It was when Pacific Rim cuisine was first starting, when I first started to get into cooking, and everybody knew how to cook. I think that's still the same here. When I was a kid, every man knew how to cook. Every woman knew how to cook. It was part of the culture, and it still is.
Sure.
The food scene is getting better, I think. I was surprised because I would come back periodically over the last couple decades, and I was always kind of disappointed. You know, there was stuff that I always came back for, you know, like local favorites and stuff that reminded me at home, but it kind of got disappointed. Now I see there's a lot of local chefs, which is great because when I was a kid, you were French, you were German, you were Dutch, you were Austrian, you were from someplace else. They brought you in because that meant quality. That doesn't mean quality. Here you got, you know, you guys got guys like Sheldon or Leanne, Jojo, Joey Makadangdang. You've got all these guys that are coming up, Kenny at the Ritz. You've got Chef Jen here at the Westin who are just passionate and are all in. They're, you know, walking Wikipedia of culinary stuff, and the amount of accessibility and things that they could learn at such a young age. They didn't have to go, if they wanted to learn about French food, move to France. They could do that because there's so much access to that. So I think it's a lot of fun. There's no more borders anymore with food. I think that's gone away.
That's cool.
So I would say Hawaii, especially Maui, is starting to really kind of kick into staying with tradition a little bit, but really bringing in, showcasing all the young talent that's coming up.
Now, from your perspective in your role, how would you answer this? What comes first, culture or taste?
I think you have to have culture for taste. So culturally, I always use tacos as an illustration for a question like this. A traditional taco has been a traditional taco. If you go into outside of Azteca Stadium in Mexico City, they make tacos the same way they've been making tacos, you know, for 100 years. It's a tortilla, either a flour or corn tortilla with meat, onion, cilantro, and then you have salsas if you want to put on side, and that's it.
Sure.
And when I was a kid, a taco was a crispy shell tortilla. It was ground beef. It was lettuce. It was tomatoes. It was cheese. It was cream. It was all these different things. Nobody wanted to hear about the real taco. Now, once that was introduced and it started to become, here's what a taco should be, unbelievable what the cultural change of that was. But it wasn't the taste of it. It was the cultural piece. That taco's always been there. The introduction of it and the liking of it changed. But the cultural piece, that's the foundation of how that started. Poke is a perfect example for Hawaii.
Yeah.
Right? So poke has been around my whole life. Well, my whole life and many other people's lives. And now it is over the last 10 years, you see an increase of it in New York and Los Angeles and other places. Poke wasn't a fad here. It's a cultural piece.
It's just,
you know,
it's been.
It's a part of the culture. It means cut fish. It's never, you know, the best poke in the world is poke. It's fish with salt and ogo. No soy sauce, no sesame, because the fish is so good. They wouldn't want to really do anything with it. So people have now figured out the taste because it's been given to them. But poke's cultural. If it didn't taste good, then you couldn't send it out anymore. But it's a cultural piece. Poi is another example. Poi, if you grew up with poi, you love it. Spam, you know, we grew up with spam. Spam's not as, it's cultural-ish, but poi is part of the culture.
There's history there.
Yeah, there's a lot. Yeah. So I would say culture.
Yeah, that's good. Shifting gears a little bit, and we're sitting in this beautiful resort.
We're sitting in a room that's completely empty, that's about to be demolished.
For all transparency. But on the property of the Westin, there's been a lot of recent renovation, improvements, but love to hear a little bit more about the history of the Westin and how it all started.
So Kaanapali itself, where the Westin sits in the middle of Kaanapali is separated by two areas. So North and South Kaanapali, and it's separated by a big black rock that's known as Black Rock. It's very
clever.
Good. Yeah, very good naming. And for years and years, there wasn't anything in Kaanapali. There's the Sheraton Kaanapali has been here before I was born. It's been here since the early 60s, maybe even late 50s. And it was the only resort on the south side of Kaanapali forever and ever. Where Westin sits now and where all the Hyatt and all the other hotels are, years ago was a racetrack. It used to be an old horse racetrack. Then it was just beaches, and there was a golf course that's been out there for a long time. And then Maui Surf came along. So Maui Surf is what the Westin is today, but that structure's been here. The second tower came in later, but Maui Surf was a hotel when I was a kid. When you walked into the lobby, it was completely flat. It was just a giant field all the way out to where the beach is, and then you could see the water when you came into the lobby.
Wow.
So when we were younger, we'd play football on it and, sneak into the hotels and steal towels and make sure that we could play around there during the day.
Ninja.
Yeah, like a ninja. See, I was doing some practice here. And then it started to develop in the mid 80s is when all of the designs, or early 80s is when all the new pool designs happened. So when Vegas started to build up and have, fancy pools, and California had fancy pools, they came in and really made a massive renovation and built this, jungle gym like pool area. And that's still kind of the focal point of the resort today. It has waterfalls and slides, and we have 5 pools. We're soon to have 7.
Wow.
So it's always was kind of the playground for all the kids and everybody else. And we are sitting in a very empty, room about to be demolished, but we can look out and we see the island of Lanai and we see the island of Molokai. And it's windy a little bit today, but it's a view that you can't beat ever.
Yeah. When you think of Maui, that you think about this view right here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What I thought was impressive, first time staying at the Westin, you walk out towards the pool and you get past the pool hut and you're literally on the beach.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've ever experienced another place like that.
So we were having a big conversation the other day about liquor licenses, and we can serve liquor up to the sand.
Oh, okay.
We have a beach path that is, 4 feet or 5 feet, 6 feet wide or whatever it is. And that has 10,000 people that walk up and down it all day.
Right.
But then we have a giant section of grass that runs the entire length of the property that is right on the beach. It's funny, in Honolulu and Waikiki and other areas in Hawaii, it's very, very difficult to have a resort that's right on the beach. And we are right on the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. And even kind of comparing this place to Waikiki, thinking about the beach and the amenities, what I love about it is you can get on a outrigger, you can learn how to surf, you can do all those things right here without all the hustle and bustle of Waikiki.
Yeah. And it's, so part of right now and we'll talk a little bit more about it, but the hotel's going under a transformation. So we have a massive renovation that started about 18 months ago. It will conclude in the room that we're sitting in right now, which will be a restaurant created by Sang Hyun out of Los Angeles, who has Father's Office. And when that transformation becomes complete, it will start the relaunch of what the Westin will be moving forward. So you were talking about the water. We have a gentleman we had lunch with today, Eric Frankham, started a program called the Westin Waterman. So Eric is exceptionally passionate about surfing and paddleboarding and anything that has to do with the water, just like I am, and like the majority of people that choose to live here.
Right.
It's an integral part of our culture. We have some of the best water men and women on the planet that call Maui home. So Laird Hamilton's, who lived here in the 90s, him and Gabby Reese lived here. Zane Schweitzer, who is partnered with us on this. And it's a combination of a couple things. One, we want to educate people about the ocean and the fun things that can go on and the variety of things you can do. So you can surf and you can paddle and you can fish and you can dive and free dive and all these different things, but also educate the younger people coming up that for us to sustain this, there needs to be a little work. We're doing a very good job as a race of trying to destroy it. So we need to counteract that by doing a very good job as a race to not destroy it.
Right.
So Eric has set up this wonderful program about educating people. So we've done it for over a year now, and phase 2 of that will be inculcating all of those activities that you talked about and really utilizing. So outrigger canoe, doing outrigger canoe trips and educating guests on that, surfing and paddleboarding and turtle tours. And this is one of the few marine sanctuaries, for humpback whales on the planet. So right out front of the hotel from December to April is going to be whale season. So we'll have humpbacks. You sit on where we're sitting right now, you sit in your hotel, you sit on the beach, you sit in the pool, and you can watch whales all over the place. So it is such an important thing for our society, for our culture, for our people to make sure that we keep this sustained, that Westin, from a standpoint of making sure that we do our part, we have inculcated water all throughout the property. So as we open up the beach to the lobby or to the Port Cashore when you come in is all going to be one area for us.
That's cool. So you guys are obviously creating great experiences, but beyond that, there's a culture, educational aspect to it, because obviously there needs to be an attractional piece as well for guests. but also there's this educational piece.
We were talking earlier about starting for the first time, the Westin in Kaanapali will have a Hawaiian cultural advisor and an advisor program.
Yeah.
It is so important. Hawaii is not like any other place.
Exactly.
And everybody can say that about it, and they're probably right. But from a destination, especially for in the U.S., there's no place like it. We're first culture. Mm-hmm. We're first history. Mm-hmm. We're the third people, which make up those two things and keep it perpetuated. We don't show hospitality. We are hospitality. Mm-hmm. We are a culture of people that have been showing off our land and showing off and sharing cultural pieces with people for as long as we've been a culture. So it is not a vacation in the sense that, yes, you're going to relax. Yes, there's going to be byproducts of vacation. It's beautiful. It's stunning, all these things. We want to inculcate what the history of this was. You asked, is it taste or culture? Yeah. In this case, it's always culture. It's always culture. It's the people. Our culture dictates why the people are so wonderful, why we're unique, why when you come here, you feel like you're part of here. Mm-hmm. It's not, when we have visitors here, we don't want the visitors to be visitors. We want the visitors to be part of our ohana, part of our family. Yeah. So the cultural piece for our hotel is so vital to bring that back, because we're not we're reprogramming the entire building, and I'm not going to have, and no offense to any of these musicians, but there won't be a Jimmy Buffett. There won't be, a Steve Ray Vaughan. There won't be a bunch of stuff, Toby Keith or any of these things, because that's not who we are. Right. So we will have, local artists, and we will support our community because it needs to be sustained. Yeah. So we're going to keep everything in Maui, keep everything in Lanai, keep everything in Molokai. So Maui County will be, but our food will be that way. Our drinks will be that way. Our education will be that way. So we have somebody that will educate people not only in Maui and Hawaii, but also on the west side of Maui. So Lahaina, where we're sitting next to, was the royal capital of Hawaii for hundreds of years. Right. So it has such a historical, massive piece in history that it seems unfair to our guests, our ohana that's coming from someplace else, not to share that. Mm-hmm.
So much more than just Mai Tais.
It is. Now, we do make good Mai Tais, but yes.
And like you said, that's a byproduct.
It is a byproduct.
Everything you do is what I'm hearing is through the spirit of aloha.
Yeah. Aloha by definition means first breath in, last breath out. Mm-hmm. And it's more than hello and goodbye. It is the first breath that you take in when you get here, you're part of us. Yeah. Until the last breath when you leave. Right. And even then, when you leave here, you'll remember this for the rest of your life. It's the old question, do you remember the best meal you ever had? And you can describe what you were wearing. You can describe what it smelled like. You can describe all of the different things. And then if I ask somebody what they ate on Wednesday 2 weeks ago, you have no idea. Right. So we're an emotional experience if you let it be. Yeah. But we need that cultural piece to drive that.
I love for our listeners to hear more about what the renovations look like, what phases, and spend some time there and rattle off what can we look forward to and what is already here.
Yeah. So yesterday we started phase 3. So it's the beginning of September. Yeah. Phase 1 was the tower that you and I are sitting below is about 90% done. We've got something I'll mention a little bit later, but all those rooms are done. Unbelievable, gorgeous. We had a designer, Maori Kim, who's from Maui, came in and she designed stuff from all over the world. She's designed stuff in London and Paris, New York, and then she's a local girl, so she came back and did a bunch of research and did a whole design based on history of West Maui. And then we did the lobby at that point. We built a very nice parking structure. So we got some, facelift stuff at the very beginning. Phase 2 is the pools. Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, we have 5 pools. We're going to have 7 out of we're about, September, end of December before Christmas, we'll be done with that piece. Okay. And phase 3 is the F&B portion. So this is the portion I've been waiting 18 months for and planning and everything else. We have a lot of new things and everything's kind of a big piece of a puzzle. Sure. So from a food and beverage piece, we talked about cultural and how important it is to bring that back. We are building 2 new bars. One will be finished here shortly. Another one will be done in April. Both of those will be based on cocktails. So the Talk Story Bar, which will be a 200-seat bar that
I love that name. That's cool.
Yeah. Good. You like the name. Yeah. I've been going back and forth. The general manager and I, Greg Lungberg, have been going back and forth. So I'm glad you like it. So Talk Story Bar will kind of flank the ocean. It'll have seats. It'll be right on the beach. It'll be next to the pool. And it's based on 7 cocktails. So 7 cocktails that I went back and I have a very good friend in Oahu named Andrew Woodley, who is one of the top 3 or 4 bartenders in the world. So him and I worked on a concept for it. But the idea is if we went back to the original tiki, so Trader Vic's or Beachcomber Bob's, we found drinks that we could tie into where we are. And each drink has a story about Maui. And half the drinks are stories about this side of Maui. And so we based an entire concept on those 7 stories.
That's cool.
So the idea was to take our history and our culture and then bring it to other people. And the name Talk Story came from the idea that this is a communal place. We want people to talk about stuff. And I love stories.
Yeah.
I love stories. I love listening to the old kapunas and, the older ones tell about stories when they were young.
Yeah.
So that's the Talk Story bar. Then we have the adult pool bar, which is based on, I had a big affinity for spa stuff in the 80s.
Yeah.
So like California spa cuisine, I thought was really, the use of avocado and all the other kind of goofy stuff and the outfits people wore. I thought that was cool. So anyway, regardless, that's what that bar is going to be based on. Kind of an elixir spa take, but infused in Hawaiian ingredients. So it'll be, savory herbs and sweets and things. But the whole idea of that bar is called Ho'omaha, which means relaxation. So it's an adult only VIP type area where we'll have live music up there, but it'll be very tasteful and quiet and everything else. And then it'll be roped off. It'll be kids free. And it's going to be a really nice space. We have a market, chef Jen Evatushek is our executive chef here, who's in Paris right now sending me, she's blowing up my phone with pictures of, have you ever heard of the Louvre? I had a croissant, so she's having a great time. And she has designed a market. And we took inspiration from like a Dean and DeLuca or a Wegmans or something like that, or, these little specialty markets that you'd find in Italy or Spain and other places that used to be here too. Like we have Hasegawa General Store in Hana. We have Oka's and all these different little places that have been around. And it'll be a small little place that'll have 4 or 5 food stations. And then that'll probably make it 80% of the market. And then 15 to 20% will be handcrafted artisan stuff. We are partnering with a company called Kuia Chocolates, which is in Lahaina, that is philanthropist Dr. Gunner, who started it, is donating all of the profits. 100% of his profits will be donated to Maui charities.
Oh, wow.
Because he doesn't need the money and he wanted to give back to the community. And it's just it's a wonderful partnership. We've got, people that make, whether it's soap or bracelets or whatever, any kind of artisan stuff that we can find. But the only tangent is that it has to be 100% made in Maui. Period.
Local, it
has to be local. And it has to be something that you can't get anywhere else.
Sure.
So I want that. We have a full-blown Starbucks that's coming in. So that'll be, that ticks a box for us.
Sure.
Cultural piece.
That's important.
Not as much, but it's Starbucks. How do you not want Starbucks? And then we talked about Sang is got a restaurant that's going to be the centerpiece of the culinary stuff. It'll be, a massive 380 seat restaurant on the water that is taken over by one of the best chefs in LA currently. And then the kind of the creme de la creme of what we've got going on is where we're sitting now above us will be our lanai experience. So the tower that we have will have this space that will be centered around culture, locality, food, and beverage. It will be 100%. Everything that goes up in there will be 100% local. We will have a Hawaiian cultural team that will be up there doing activities. And we've broken it off into morning activity, which will start the morning with an ʻIole or something similar to that. We'll have an afternoon cultural activity and evening cultural activity that will be provided for all the guests who buy into this tower or, stay in this tower with us. And it will be the most authentic, culturally accurate experience that one would have. So if you wanted to come to Hawaii and experience Hawaii, experience it. I mean, really, really experience it. Right. This is the only place that you would want to stay.
Yeah.
And we're more excited about that. We've been working on cocktails we won't have any alcohol that's not from Hawaii that's up there. So nothing, everything will be local. We have enough, now it's nice. There's enough distilleries and breweries and things to provide us with some booze to make this appropriate and everything. So we've got that going on. Everything should be done, minus Sang's is a little bit longer just because of the magnitude of the project. Sang will be done June of 2020.
Okay.
The other projects will be done, almost all of them will be done by April and May of 2020.
And out of all these projects and all these moving pieces and puzzle pieces, as you call them, which one, maybe personally, you're most excited about? Would that be, would I assume, the Lanai?
Yeah, the Lanai to me is I've opened up, I don't know, in my career, I've probably opened up 1,500 restaurants, maybe more. And I've done it in 70 different countries. Nothing has hit home more to me than this. We have so many people that are passionate about this. And this wasn't just me designing this. I had the idea of what I wanted. I knew what I wanted, something that was culturally accurate. I wanted something that would, we have a phrase here, chicken skin, give you chicken skin when you walked in, goosebumps. And I shared that idea with our general manager. I shared that idea with our marketing team. But when I started sharing it with our team, with our associates, then you find out that I'm not unique here. I've got a building of 400 people that want to do the exact same thing. So when I talk to our front desk people, or I talk to our guest service team, or I talk to landscapers, housekeepers, cooks, anybody else, everybody wants to be involved. So for me, the collaboration with everybody in the building to get it going. And we did a showcase of what that looked like to our ownership and to our management team. It'll make you cry. I mean, it's heart-wrenching. It's beautiful, but it means something. It's not just, the drinks and stuff. Everything will be culturally accurate and everything else.
Right.
But this will tug at your heart. And that's what we wanted to accomplish. And that we can do because of how passionate everybody that works here is about it.
Having that buy-in and having that ownership amongst your team and associates, I mean, that's huge. That's when you know you're onto something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because I'm not all that bright. So I wasn't asking to be friendly. I was asking, I don't have any idea what I'm talking about here. Can you help me out?
That's leadership too.
Yeah. Just by default. Yeah, right. It's perfect. Yeah.
Growing up on Maui, talking about stories.
Okay.
What was maybe one of your favorite stories growing up in regards to Maui?
We always liked questions, right? So tourists, obviously, as a kid, you don't appreciate people coming from other places. So my father came here in the 50s. He's old. So when in the early 50s, Maui was very well known for, and Lahaina specifically was very well known for black coral. So we had a lot of black coral. Now there's less and less of it, obviously, because it doesn't generate itself. By the time I was old enough to dive and do that type of stuff with my father, it was really deep. So you'd had to dive 200, 250. Now they're diving over 300 feet to go get this stuff. My dad was here in the 50s. It was, 30, 35 feet, so they could free dive for it. And he used to have some great stories about, all of these guys going out and they would dive all day and then drink all night. So it was, this kind of fantasy, he obviously, I don't think he was married at this point, so he could do whatever he wanted. But as a kid, I just remember questions, tourists especially would ask questions about neat stuff, they would if you and I were standing here and they would look at Lanai and say, "Hey, is that California?"
Stop it.
Yeah, great stuff. Or my ex-wife's family has boats, and I worked on those for a long time when I was a kid, and she still has them. And, her and I used to laugh because they would, we'd be on the boat. And I remember a man who was, I can tell you, it was Ken from Topeka, Kansas.
Okay, Ken.
Ken wanted to know if water went all the way around the island.
Okay. And that's a legitimate question.
Yeah, absolutely. He wanted to know how you got to if you could swim under, if there was a tunnel, or if you could drive underneath Maui to get from one side to the other.
Yeah.
He rattled off these 3 questions, Ken from Topeka. And if you're listening, and I remember, we would get to a point where we would just, yes. The water, it actually doesn't go all the way around. It stops, and you didn't see that when you came in. You actually can. What I need you to do is go talk to our friends up at Lahaina Fish Company or wherever and just tell them, hey, you need the key because you want to do the drive under the island, so stuff like that where we have shenanigans, if you will. I remember, as a kid, though, sneaking into pools, I thought was the greatest. It was it was never really hurt anybody, and you're always running away from stuff.
Yeah.
The freedom as a child here to go diving, to go We grew up eating fresh fish. We grew up with sea turtles. We grew up with whales. We grew up with old salty seamen that were angry all the time. And I had an uncle that I didn't know drank until I saw him sober one time. I mean, I had all these
like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah. Are you okay? You seem peakish. Jumping off rocks. It was such a free and loving place. And it taught us more about the golden rule, I think, than any place I've ever lived, because here you treat everybody exactly how you want to be treated, because sure enough, you get mad in traffic and give somebody a gesture that you shouldn't.
Yeah.
Say you're going someplace, they're probably going there too. So,
right.
It's not a good situation. So it just teaches you. And I lived on Lanai for almost 2 years, and that was an island of 3,000 people where everybody knows your name legitimately. And you have friends that are friends for life. You have family, everybody that's older than you is uncle or auntie. You learn respect. You learn how you should treat people. You learn about culture. You're inculcated and immersed in an area that the whole world comes to you. That's what I love living here now. Yeah. And that was my favorite part of growing up here.
Yeah. Going back a little bit, I love your posture in visiting other cultures, wanting to go there and experience it, being there, knowing that you're a guest, asking those questions. Maybe speak a little bit about someone who's coming to Hawaii for the first time. What are some culture things? We talked a lot about culture, but maybe what are some etiquette things that you want people just to be aware of before they deplane?
I would say when you come to Maui or when you come to Hawaii, come to Hawaii.
Yeah.
Forget where you're from for a little bit. I always tell people, you know what you know. You'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Your job now is to learn all the stuff you don't know. So from an etiquette standpoint, here's a couple of quick things. Aloha to everybody that is used. It's not a hashtag. It's aloha and mahalo go a long way. It's please and thank you for everything. It's hello, goodbye. Listen more than speak. This is an opportunity for somebody to learn about a culture that they probably don't know a lot about. Ask questions. I am a massive proponent of who, what, where, when, why, how.
Yeah.
Couple like real etiquette things. Always remove your shoes before you enter somebody's house. Always. I don't care who the house is. Always. It's not an option. It's a practice. I've got enough lickings for even walking 1 foot in with a pair of slippers. I don't do it anywhere I go, regardless of what it is. Remember that if you're driving, we're very limited on roads here. If you're driving and want to take a picture, absolutely pull over and do it.
Yeah.
Don't use your cell phone when you're driving around here. We have kids running around. We have all kinds of stuff. There's people crossing the street all the time to go surfing or go in the water, things like that. Be cognizant of people. I mean, really, you're going to immerse yourself in where you are, but really being cognizant of people. And if you don't know if you should do something, ask somebody. It's very, very simple. For the most part, Hawaii is one of the most educated places I know. As far as people that know where they're from. So if you want to ask any local person for sure, hey, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? Absolutely. Another wonderful, ask somebody where to eat. Like right now, I'll talk to 500 people in the hotel today and they'll ask me where to eat. And I'll say, yes, you should eat here, but I don't eat here. I'll tell you where I go. And, if I'm not cooking at home or I'm not going to a barbecue or I'm not doing this, if I'm not out with my girlfriend exploring or making dinner together, then I got 50 places I can go and eat, and we have a lot of good local people that cook for us and everything else. And don't be afraid to do something that's not in a guidebook. Spend as much time in the water as you can, from please, thank you, mahalo, aloha. Act like you were at somebody's house.
Yeah.
Would be my best advice to you. Like somebody invited you over.
Yeah.
Act like that.
Yeah. That's a great way to sum it up. Jonathan, is there anything else about the Westin that maybe we should be aware of or excited about?
The number one reason why anybody should come to this hotel. The food will be great. The beverages will be great. Right. The service is great. But the people that work here are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, they're unbelievable. We have people, it's not uncommon to go anywhere around here where somebody's worked here for 35 or 40 years. They've had their entire life, their entire career has been based here.
Yeah.
I've never met a group of humans that I like more than the group of humans that are in this building. They are lovely. They're wonderful. They are family. we fight, we argue, we make up. But when it comes to guests, the things that we do better than anybody else, I feel, is the stuff that's free. We're kind and we're nice, and we want to make sure that you have a great time, and we go out of our way to ensure that you have an experience, not a vacation.
That's definitely been my wife, Allie, and I, our experience here. Right when we got here, checked in, we talked with Don.
Don and Atta. So her husband, Atta, is one of the landscapers.
That's what
when we were having breakfast, he walked by us this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And she's fantastic.
She's fantastic. Like 15-minute conversation about...
no problem.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on Hawaii's Best today. How can people get connected with the Westin Maui?
Obviously, we have a website under westin.com or westinkanapali.com. We're on Instagram. We've got we have 3 parrots. We have a black swan that all have Instagram pages. So Keoki Keone, Newman, the black swan, they all have Instagram. Newman. And it really is blind birds. I thought it was a black duck, and apparently it's a swan. Big bites. But anyway, Newman's great. So we have social media, and you Google the hotel. And again, we have a bunch of fun stuff happening for the next 4 or 5 months. And then we have a big kickoff with Sang's restaurant being completed in June of 2020. So definitely check us out. Yeah. We're a lot of fun. Come see me personally. If you like to drink or eat, I know a guy.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I just want to give a big thanks to Jonathan for his time, his hospitality, and all of his wisdom when it comes to Hawaii, and so much more than Hawaii, but about being a traveler, about being someone who is aware of the world and other people. For me, that's probably my biggest key takeaway, is wherever you go is to not simply be a tourist, but be a learner. Ask a lot of questions. Learn the culture that you're going to and that you're in. We mentioned about a conversation we had with Dawn, simply at the front desk, about just asking questions about Lahaina and about Maui and about some of the places that she enjoyed. We got a whole slew of information, and it was like a 15, 20-minute conversation about where to eat and what to eat and what to do and what not to do. And it's important to go wherever you're at. If it's Hawaii, if it's Bahamas, if it's Mexico, doesn't matter where you're at, is to not just be a tourist, but be a learner of culture. And I think Jonathan has done an amazing job at that. And that comes across in everything that they do, in all the projects and all the initiatives and all the renovations that they're doing. It's so much more than providing a great experience. That is kind of the byproduct of it all. Really at the heart of what truly matters is telling story, and is about understanding culture, and is simply about loving one another. That's what Hawaii's Best is all about. And I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I want to encourage you, if you did, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on future episodes, and also drop a review below. That helps other people be able to find this conversation. Well, until next time, be well. Aloha.
Thanks for listening to Hawaii's Best Podcast. To stay up to date on future episodes, be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at hawaiis.best.